The first thing you need to know is this. A $20,000 handbag is never just leather and hardware. It is a story engineered to be worn on the arm. It is architecture for the ego, theatre for the senses, and an instrument designed to play the most sophisticated notes of human psychology. Chanel and Hermès understand this better than almost anyone. They don't sell bags, they choreograph desire. Let's begin with the stage. The boutiques are not stores, they're rituals in marble. Lighting is low enough to slow your breath. Surfaces are quiet, so the product can whisper. You are greeted by name if you've been there before, and if you haven't, you're greeted with a gentle pause. The pause that says, "Are you meant to be here?" That tiny friction is the first persuasion. It tells the brain this is scarce. Scarcity heightens value before a price is ever mentioned. Now notice the choreography of touch. A classic flap or a Kelly is never dumped on a counter. It is presented, gloves sometimes appear, tissue size. The bag rests on a cloth as if it has a pulse. That is not theatrics, it's conditioning. When an object is handled like a treasure, we encode it as such. Psychologists call it the endowment effect. Once you've held it, pictured your initials, felt the weight of the chain, your brain begins to treat it as yours. From there, loss aversion takes over. Walking away feels like losing something you already own. Chanel's modern playbook is about anchoring an ascent. They anchor the eye with the astronomical. Couture shows that cost more than small films. A métier d'art ecosystem that keeps the craft narrative alive, and a classic flap whose price has been stepped up in regular intervals over the last few years. Each increase does two things. First, it repositions yesterday's price as a deal in memory, making today feel survivable. Second, it signals to the market that this is a Veblen good, demand that rises with price because the price itself communicates status. Chanel protects this by limiting how many of the most coveted shapes you can buy in a year in many regions. The policy isn't about deprivation for its own sake. It's about protecting the aura that the price created. If anyone can line up 10, nobody needs one. Hermès plays a different symphony. Their myth is not about you entering the world of the house. It is about the house allowing a small piece of its world to enter yours. The Kelly and Birkin are the purest examples of earned glamour. There is no official wait list, no official promise, and rarely the one you want on the shelf. What exists is a relationship with a sales associate, clienteling at its most intimate. You are profiled gently, humanely, your taste, your wardrobe colors, your life. You are invited to discover leathers, learn the language of grain, understand why Epsom holds shape while Togo relaxes. You begin to participate in the atelier romance, and suddenly you're not hunting a bag, you're becoming the kind of person who would care for it. When eventually a box appears from the back, anticipation is the product. Dopamine isn't at the point of purchase, it's in the waiting. Anticipation is the most renewable fuel in luxury. And yet we must be clear and fair. People often claim that Hermès bundles, that access to certain bags is easier after buying ready-to-wear shoes, fine jewelry. The brand has never stated such a rule, and policies vary by boutique and by person. What is true is simpler. Companies reward behavior that suggests a long life with the house. If you show up only for a mythic object, the story is too short. If you build a wardrobe around the codes, you demonstrate belonging, and luxury houses like people invest where there is belonging. Chanel's narrative is craftsmanship as identity. The reason the classic bag holds court is not only the quilting and chain, it's the ecosystem behind it. Embroiderers, feather makers, goldsmiths, artisans who survived because Chanel bought their ateliers to preserve the hands that make the myth. When you purchase, you are told not only what it is, but who made it possible. It's a moral of continuity. This isn't consumption, it's patronage. For many buyers, that reframing turns expense into virtue. That is not manipulation in the cheap sense. It's a very old persuasion. Nobility used to sponsor the arts. Now you do. Still, the effect is economic. People justify higher prices when they believe their purchase sustains culture. Hermès' persuasion is material literacy. They teach you differences most brands barely mention. Why Chev resists scratches, how Barenia patinates like a good saddle, why Cellier edges are stitched differently from Ratorn. When an object is tied to knowledge, we protect it more fiercely, and we feel elevated holding it. Knowledge produces intimacy. Intimacy produces loyalty. That is why a Birkin looks the same for decades and still advances. Each year, the house deepens the glossary of hides, colors, and craftsmanship rather than redrawing the silhouette. The bag is not new, your understanding of it is. Then there is social proof, the mirror we all pretend we don't look into. The resale market publishes your taste as a quote. When a Chanel or Hermes bag retains or appreciates, it feels like the world agreeing with you. Price increases and rarity quietly push up resale. That public confirmation becomes private courage. People love to say investment piece. Strictly speaking, a bag is not an investment vehicle. It does not produce cash flow. But as a store of value in a certain ecosystem, it can perform well. Houses do not deny this, and they do not guarantee it either. They simply allow the market to do the whispering for them. Architecture matters too. Chanel's staircase, Hermes's horse imagery, the smell of leather, even the distance between seating, these are environmental nudges. You try on a bag while seated, and seated people buy more slowly but more surely. It feels considered. Adult. You're offered water on a tray. Your name used in sentences. You are shown leathers not for everyone. Every cue says you are a protagonist, not a customer. We pay more when we are the main character. There are harder edges. The quota at Chanel on classic silhouettes means some clients feel monitored, and some love the guardrail. If they cannot buy freely, others cannot either, and that protects the tribe. Price rises create outrage and relief in equal measure. Outrage because the number shocks, relief because the item you already own just elevated. That pendulum is part of the design. Controversy is exposure, and exposure is oxygen. For Hermes, opacity is part of the spell and the frustration. When will your color appear? Will your size come? You never quite know. The uncertainty biases the brain toward take it when it comes. That can lead to purchases adjacent to what you truly wanted. Close, not perfect. It's here the consumer must be conscious. There is nothing manipulative about a brand guarding its icons, but there is always a moment where the psychology tips from romance into restlessness. You must know which side of the line you stand on. Notice how both houses shape time. Chanel creates urgency with seasonal cadence and limited supply, a rhythm that says now or never. Hermes stretches time into narrative, someday if. One is percussion, the other is a violin held on a single note. Both are effective because they respect human nature. We are either hunters of the drop or pilgrims of the myth. The language is disciplined. Chanel speaks of allure, attitude, and the life of a woman in motion. Hermes speaks of utility ennobled, objects for life on horseback, transposed to life in a city. This is important because it keeps the brands from descending into generic luxury. Persuasion works best when it is coherent. Even a price must feel like a sentence that only this house could write. You may never ride a horse or live on the Rue Cambon, but the bag suggests you could belong to a world where those stories are true. There is also dignity in aftercare. Hermes Spa is not a marketing flourish, it is a philosophy. A beautiful object should have a second life and a third. Chanel's care services are part of the same pact. Repair turns ownership into stewardship. When a brand tends your object, it tends you. People will pay deeply for that feeling because it softens the harshest truth in consumer culture, that most things are disposable. Chanel and Hermes promise the opposite. They don't sell trend, they sell continuity with occasional tremors. Where does the manipulation live then? In the most human places. Our hunger to be seen, our need to belong, our fear of missing the last boat, our relief when experts tell us we chose well. Luxury houses are fluent in these languages, and they speak them with impeccable manners. If we call it manipulation, we must also call it mastery. The important thing is that you walk into the scene with your eyes open. Know that the thrill you feel when an orange box appears is chemistry and choreography. Know that a price can be a signal. Know that scarcity can be theatre, and also protection, sometimes in the same breath. And know this as well. A great bag can be more than a strategy. It can be a companion, a reliquary of your life. The receipt from the day you got the job, the lipstick you wore on the day you forgave yourself, the softness where your hand always rests. That is the part no brand can manufacture. They can invite you into longing. Only you can give the object meaning. So the psychology behind a $20,000 handbag is not a trick. It is a sophisticated dialogue between a house that understands human nature and a buyer who wants to dress her values. Chanel will offer allure made permanent. Hermès will offer functions sanctified by craft. Both will ask for time, attention, and money. The only defense and the only power is clarity. Do you want the story, or do you want the symbol? Do you want the craft, or do you want the confirmation? There is no wrong answer. There is only the honest one. If you choose to enter, enter consciously. Make the appointment for yourself before you make it with the boutique. Decide which colors read your life, which sizes serve your body, which leathers will carry what you actually carry. Respect your own threshold for mystery and your own appetite for waiting. Because in the end, the most expensive thing you can lose is not money, it is agency. And the most elegant thing you can wear is not a bag. It is the calm that comes from knowing you chose it. Not because a house persuaded you, but because it fit the architecture of your life. That is how these maisons move you, and that is how you move within them. Eyes open, spine straight, myth understood. The box may be orange or black and white. The psychology is timeless.